Hi teachers, this is Jill Dyott, and today I'm going to talk to you about how to create the click to reveal effect in Smart Notebook. So the idea behind the click to reveal is that you have two objects and you layer them one on top of the other so that and then you animate the object that's on top so that when you click it on the board itself, the object fades away and reveals what's behind it. So I'm going to show you a few examples, and then I'll show you how to create the click to reveal effect. So this first slide, this is actually a slide that I used with my Smartboard class that I ran over this past summer. And this is kind of like the break the ice and introduce yourself activity. So what happens is I happen to know that my name is under the fish, and so I start, and so I click the fish on my Smartboard, and my name shows up. And then I introduce myself and I say something about myself. And then what I do is I click another image and that person's name shows up, and then it's their turn to come to the front of the classroom and introduce themselves, and then they choose another image to click, and then that person comes up until everyone in the class has come up and introduced themselves. So this is just a good way to get people out of their seats, or get your students out of their seats and to introduce themselves. And you don't have to do all different images here, so you don't need to go through Smart Gallery and choose all different images. You could just do the same image over and over again if you wanted to. So here's another example, and this one is click to reveal the name of the bone. So obviously this is some kind of anatomy or science class. And I got this example from Smart Exchange, so I will say I didn't create this myself. But so what would happen is the students would come up to the board and then just click each of these green bars, and the name of the bone appears. So the way that you would do this kind is you would create this green triangle first, and then you just clone it over and over again to make, however many this person happened to have on here, 20 or so. And this last example, again, this is one from Smart Exchange. What is it? I'm assuming this teacher would have students come up to the Smartboard and then click one of the honeycombs, and a little piece of the picture starts to show up. And then as you go through each of these, you get a better idea of what the picture is. So again, I imagine that when this person created this click to reveal effect, they used that cloning tool, and I'll talk about that in just a second. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new page, and I'll show you what this looks like. Okay, so say you wanted to do the attendance or the break the ice kind of thing. So what you would do is you would create text boxes with your students' names in them, or whatever the text is that you want to appear. Obviously, it doesn't have to be a name. Okay, so I'm going to have the smallest class here. I have 4 students in my class. So I have all of their names put down on a slide. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the gallery, or if you had a particular picture or image that you wanted to use, you could always just drag and drop from Google Images or from a website. And I'm going to search for the sun. Okay, so now I'll come into the pictures drop-down menu, and here is a sun. So I'm going to drag it over, and I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller because that looks kind of big. Now at this point, if I wanted to use the same sun over and over again, I would probably want it to be, the same size, and so I would say, okay, I'm going to clone it. I'm going to bring it up over John's name, and again, clone it. And if you had, obviously I'm sure that you have more than 20 kids in your classes. So what you could do is just say the infinite cloner, and then every time you kind of take the original and drag it, it creates another one. Okay, so you get the idea. I'm going to turn the infinite cloner off. And I'm just going to delete this one because I already have enough for my names. Okay, so now the object is on top of, or the sun is on top of the name. What you need to kind of be aware of is if you had created it in a different order. So say you had an addition to your class, right? And you made the sun. So I'm going to clone the sun here. And then say you tried to put a text box on top of it. Oh, but see what happened is because you created the sun first and then the text box after, the text is sitting on top of the sun. So what you need to do is you need to play around with that ordering that we talked about. So you come into the drop-down menu, you go to order, and you're going to send backward. Because you're only using 2 items, you could do send to back or send backward. In the Smartboard class, we talked about the difference. If you're sending something backward, it's going back 1 layer. If you're saying send it to the back, it's going all the way to the back of whatever you're stacking. So in the case of having 2 items, it doesn't really matter if you're sending it backward or sending it to the back. But if you were if you're really getting fancy and you were layering 3 items on top of each other, you need to be a little bit more cognizant of whether you're sending it backward or you're sending it to the back. And I talk a little bit about that with the magic tunnel effect, because with the magic tunnel, you actually do have some instances where you want to be careful about not sending something all the way to the back, because then it disappears. So, but in this case, because we only have 2 layers, I don't really care if I'm sending it to the back or sending it backward. Okay, so there, his name has now disappeared. So at this point, what you need to do is you need to play with the object's animation features so that you can choose to have the item fade out when it's clicked. So here's how you do it. You're going to select the sun. You're going to go into its drop-down menu and go into its properties. That's going to open up the property tab over here. And you're going to click on Object Animation. And the default object animation is none. The Smart Notebook just assumes that you want to have an object just stay on the screen. But what you want it to do is you want it to fade out. And then also this occurs when the object is clicked is the default. And for this particular effect, that's what you want. You want to leave it on the default when the object is clicked. Otherwise, if you changed all the suns to fade out when the page is entered, they would all just disappear as soon as you clicked on the on this particular page, and then it would kind of ruin the point of it. So you can basically just leave these 2 things as their default. So I'm just clicking Command on my Mac or Control on your PC to select all the suns at once, because what I'm going to do now is go into their properties. And I'm going to click on Fade Out and leave it as when the object is clicked. So what I just did there is I made it so that I don't have to go through each and every object and changing its properties. So just by holding down the Command on my Mac, or if you have a PC, you want to hold down Control, you click all the suns, or you click all the objects that you want to fade out when they're clicked, and just do them all at once, just so you save yourself a little bit of time. And that is it. So now, if I go back into my page sorter tab, you'll see that my suns have been added to the bottom. And one kind of trick that I've learned playing with this over the years is that when you want to like reset the page, so maybe you've gone through and you've clicked through some of them, and you want to figure out how to get the page back to having all the suns on it. If you just kind of go click the back a slide arrow and then forward, it's almost like a kind of a manual reset of the page. So it just puts it back to your original slide of how you set it up. So that's